Hi, so this is team number 2, and we decided to work together for this lab. My name is Sneha.
I'm Trish. I'm the team leader and the programmer for code number 2, which was Rooms and More.
And I'm Kristen, and I focused on the quality control, so I wrote all the testers and made sure everything was correct.
Okay, so since we were only 3 members and the roles were for 4 members, so we all kind of contributed to each and every role. Like, I coded string set program being like the programmer number 1, but Kristen and Trish equally contributed. Same goes for Rooms and More and for all the testers. Now, for the string set, we were supposed to revisit like what we did on our individual labs for the string set, but we did a little bit of modification in this one. Instead of like adding these things to the code, we kind of just like rewrote the entire thing because it was getting kind of complicated and kind of congested in Eclipse. So we sort of made like a separate version of that is solely dedicated for this lab and this lab only. And then we have the Rooms and More, which was written by Kristen. I mean, not Kristen, my bad. Trish. Okay, so this is our string set program. As you can see that we kind of just like rewrote the entire code. It's not added to like the previous lab. So the string set was initially meant to, or the addition was meant to add up like the integers if there's any in the string that the user enters, and it is supposed to output the total number of characters entered and search for substrings. Those were all the things that this program is supposed to do. This is not the main method. These are the all of the classes that we have. Beginning with, so we start by importing the array list and then extending it to this class, the array list string superclass. And then we have a public constructor called which calls the superclass constructor. And then we have an override method in the superclass to add a new string. After that, we have a constructor that removes the last element of an array list, and it also has an if statement implemented in it, which checks if the list list is not empty, or if it is, then it removes the last element in the list. Then we have a getter method that returns the size of the array list. Then we have the um, adding up the integers method, which calculates the sum of valid integers in the array list. We begin by initializing the sum variable to 0. And then we have a for loop that loops through each string in the list. And then we used a try catch method to convert a string into an integer and then add that integer to the value to the sum variable that we initialized before. And then the catch is that if a string cannot be converted, then it will catch the exception and continue looping, which just makes the program a little bit better, and it doesn't just stop in the middle. So yeah. And then yeah, the constructor just returns the sum of valid integers. Then we have another constructor called the numchars, which calculates the total number of characters in the array list. To begin with, we have a variable called count, which is initialized to 0. And then we have a for loop that again loops through each string in the list and then adds the length of that string to the count variable, and it returns count, which is the total number of characters. And lastly, we have count strings. This count string constructor, which counts the number of times a given string appears in an array list. Like you can see when we run the program, where it says the number of strings that contains hello is 0. So So that's like when we run the program, that is what it outputs, and that's the part of the code that works. And then in this constructor, we also have a variable called count, which is initialized to 0. And again, the same thing, a for loop that loops through each string in the list, and the if statement this time, which gives it the condition to look for string and increment the count variable. And we have count plus plus that increments the count variable, and then it returns the count, which is the count of a given array list. And yeah, that's string set. And now we have string tester.
Okay, so our tester, we import a scanner because we're going to be having our inputs for the code here. And we start off with the public class called string set tester. We bring in our main methods so that everything can run, and we bring in that scanner. And then this main program is going to prompt the user for inputs and then allow them to input it. So it's just going to be gathering our information. We start off by asking the user how many strings they'll enter, and it gives them the option to put in the next int. And then after that, it asks the user to enter each string, and it'll add it to the string set, storing that information. And then after that, it's going to print the information it's gathered, so the number of strings entered and the total number of characters entered. And then after that, the user is prompted to enter a substring it's searching for, and the code will run and see if anything can be caught or if it sees anything. And if it does contain what the user put in, it'll give the user back a number, and if not, then it doesn't. And then the last thing is, it asks the user to enter up to 15 strings, and type done to stop. And after that, it'll add up any integers that the code finds and add them all up and return them back to the user, which is what our final int sum at the bottom there. It'll tell you the sum of all the integers. So that is the string set tester, and we brought in that string set sanity tester code that was given to us at the start of this assignment.
Okay, so to test the code, it asks the users how many strings they want to enter. So let's just do 4 strings, and then we'll type 4 random strings. It returns the number of strings that was entered, and it adds up the total characters, like Kristen said. And then you can enter a substring that you want to search for within the strings that were already entered. So if I want to find the word by, it will return that there was one instance of that in the strings provided. And then you'll enter up to 15 strings. And so you can enter strings that contain numbers as well. And then when you're done, you press done, and then it'll return the sum of the valid integers after it's been parsed to integers. And that's our code for a string set. So for the second part of the project, we had the Rooms and More project, and we're supposed to create 3 different classes for that called Room, Classroom, and Elevator. And these were the instructions given to us. And we were also given starter code for that. And so if I go back, the first class we created was the Rooms class. And in this one, it created an instance variable area. And then the first class we made was the Rooms class. And in it, we had a private instance variable called area. And the constructor took in an area value, and then it sets it to the area value of the data field. And then we have a method that returns the value of the area instance variable. And then we also have another method that sets the value of the area variable. And then the get capacity method basically just returns the area divided by 9, assuming that it is 9 square feet per person. And then we also have a string method that formats it. Elevator class, which is extended from the Rooms class, and it has a private int variable, which is floor. And the constructor the constructor takes in an area and it gets sent to the superclass, which is rooms. And we have a method in it that returns the value of floor. We have another method called up that increments the value of floor. And we have another method that decrements the floor value. And then we also have a toString method, which just formats the output.
Okay, so then we have the classroom class, which extends to the superclass room. In there, we have a private variable called chairs that keeps track of the number of chairs that is present in the classroom. Then we have a constructor that takes in an integer area parameter and calls the constructor to the superclass, which is rooms, using the quote-unquote super keyword. Then we have another constructor that has two parameters, one area, the second one is chairs, and then and then it sets the value of chairs using the this dot method or the keyword. Then we have another one, another method that returns the value of chairs, instance variable. And then lastly, we have another method called set chairs that just sets the value of chairs to the instance variable chairs.
Class is the building class, which contains our main method. We start off by importing the array list, random, and the scanner. And we go down to our main method, which we initialize the scanner here, and we create the array list called rooms. And after that, we declare a random object so that we can generate random numbers throughout the code. Next up, we're going to prompt the user and ask them if they want to create a classroom or create an elevator. And whenever they're ready, they can also exit out of the code, and it prompts the user for input. And right here, we go to a while statement and then an else if statement, and it's going to prompt the user until they continue to exit. So it's going to keep looping through, asking the user if they made a classroom, how many chairs they want, and any other important information. Here we get to create an elevator, and they can create a new elevator object with a random floor number, and they can randomly choose to move the elevator up or down. And then after that, it'll prompt the user again if they want to create a classroom or create an elevator or exit. After that, it's going to close the scanner. And then this last part, loops through the information.
Okay, so when you run the code, the user can enter 1, 2, or 3. And so first, let's start by creating a classroom by entering 1, and it prompts asking the user how many chairs they want. Let's say 30. And then you can repeat that step and create another classroom, create an elevator, or you can exit. So we can create an elevator and then create a classroom and then enter the number of chairs. And then we can keep going until the user wants to exit. So if we exit now, it'll return all the elements from the array list, and it returns the area, the capacity of the floor, the area of all the different rooms, the capacity of the floor, and then, yeah, that is our program.